Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and after many years as a marketing leader in the B2B SaaS industry, I set up Hey Gabby to support startups and scale-ups with their go-to-market and growth needs. I work with so many great founders, and that's led me to want to hear their stories and share them with others. And that's why I set up this podcast. So let's get into this week's podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. And this week, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Sophie Carr. Sophie is the founder and CEO of GAIO Tech. Welcome to the show, Sophie.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So Sophie is no stranger to being a founder. And I think in the brief conversation we just had, you've been around for a while as a founder. So tell me all about that.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. Well, as you all know, being a founder is never a straight line. You know, you think you're going to jump in and be rich and famous really quickly, but that doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. You need to put in a lot of effort and you need to learn how to fail. I think that's the most important thing. So for me, it started maybe about 5 years ago now, and I first went in the Founder Institute. And when I was in that program, it was fantastic. I was learning loads, but to be honest, didn't really have a clear idea of what I was going to build. And it just got a bit much. I dropped out. So I failed. That was my first failure. Then regrouped, got back together, tried it again, failed again. And then finally, after that, I didn't fail in my head, because in my head, I learned so much. I had so many foundations. You learn from some of the best mentors. And so I kept going. We ended up founding a company called Optimisation, which was it was a company that was targeting schools, especially early years centers, to try and reduce the burden and burnout on teachers. So yes, we got a lot of great feedback from this, but budget was a problem for most of the schools, and that combined with the whole AI, data, children, it was all a bit, tricky to manage. So we said, okay, let's try something different. So I got a job working as head of marketing. And before that, the whole way through, when I first started using ChatGPT, I had this kind of epiphany moment, because I have a background in SEO and content creation and content management. And for me, when I first started using ChatGPT, I was like, whoa, like this is the biggest influential moment of our era. Like that's how it felt. I was like, imagine if you could actually influence the AI to talk about your brand to your customer in a private conversation. Like how powerful would that be? And that was really the root of the company we have today. It was that question that then spun off a whole bunch of experiments, hard work, focus, understanding what's working, what's not working, changing those frameworks, developing methodologies, and really pioneering in that space and just pushing it to its limits and saying, okay, this is what the world knows right now, because I was meeting as many people as I could on LinkedIn. Another good thing for founders to do is, of course, speak to others, learn what is going on right now. How do you currently solve these problems? And that's when we decided, okay, yeah, actually, we are seeing movement. We are seeing it work. And that's really, really exciting. But what we were hearing was, yes, we want this, but we want to do it ourselves. We want our team to manage it. So we want your formulas, we want all of this, but can you build something where we don't have to hire you, basically, where we can actually give it to our team who's already in place and let them do it? So that's really where it all began. And we decided to start, basically, we built a very basic vibe coded platform way back early last year, took it to Supernova, which is a big tech festival here in Antwerp. And we got it there. We got in front of a bunch of big names and they said, yeah, this is great. Like we really want this. If you can build this, how you're saying it, we'll get it, we'll buy it. So then we entered the Founder Institute for the third time in my life, which was actually the most amazing experience. Joined there, felt so much more prepared this time. Like I was really confident with my idea. I had a great team as well. I put myself forward as the president of the group. And that's actually where I met our co-founder, Adnan, who's our CTO. He had similar, a kind of a similar idea as me, but further down the line, and we were just helping each other out so much. He's got a lot of experience in, he worked for Sony, for Square, some really, really big names. So yeah, together we just found we were lifting each other up, helping each other out loads. So we finally graduated the Founder Institute, and yeah, it was a fantastic experience. But that was just the beginning, because then it's turning that vibe coded platform into something that really works in the real world. Because as you probably know, vibe coded, prototypes are great, but you can't go to market with them really, because they're full of security flaws, they're buggy, there's so many problems, you just can't rely on it. So since then, that's kind of where it all began. We started going through, we can now scan, plan, track, create, and publish. Will be online end of the month. So that took us about a year to get to this point, from the Founder Institute. And finally, as of the end of this month, the full thing will be online.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been a real journey.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, Sophie. And I think, I often talk to founders, and one of the key things is the fact that you can't just give up, and resilience is a key attribute of a great founder, or a founder that's going to continue to be successful. And the fact that you said, well, I failed at this and I failed at that. I mean, for me, I'm going, no, you didn't fail. No, you didn't. You pivoted. But the fact you can identify that things didn't go quite to plan, I think is key. Why do you think it didn't go to plan the second time, after you'd kind of had a bit of experience the first time round?
So you mean with the school community software?
Yeah.
So for me, that time round, one, I couldn't find a CTO. And at the time, you didn't have Replit. That wasn't, well, maybe it was there, but I wasn't using it. It was way, way, way before. So when it was also time to come to market, we just found that the price was also such a huge problem, especially for schools in the UK. We found the same problem in Belgium, where the schools were all saying, this is really interesting, like this is great, but we don't want to invest in that right now. We just don't have the budget. They're trying to make cuts. They said, we're making cuts left, right, and center. We can't afford it. So ultimately, it came down to, a few things of, big signals, which you have to pay attention to these signals. You can't keep going. If you're getting enough signals saying this is not the right direction, you need to change direction. You need to pivot. And that's why I said, fail, but it's a fail forward. And it takes a lot of guts to kind of turn around and say, all right, no more. And another huge kicker for us was the team that we were paying, because we didn't have a full-time CTO at the time. The team that we were actually paying to build it for us copied the idea and launched it themselves. So this was, of course, a bit of a stab in the gut when you're hiring a freelance team to do that as well. And for us, it was, a combination of, and we just said, right, hang on a minute. If we're going to do this properly, we need a full-time CTO. I don't want to outsource a team again, because it's just not necessarily going to work. You don't want to put yourself at risk like that.
Yeah, that's tricky. So were those people that copied your idea, were they just individual freelancers, or was it an actual company under NDA?
It was a company, and they were under NDA. But it was like a pop-up. Our company, of course, was Octoped. We found Octopod, and it was like basically almost exactly the same, with the same, it was a company, and it was the founder of the company was the same founder on that company. And we just looked at it and we were like, right, okay, this is
did you sue them?
Signals. No, because what can you really do? Like, it's hard to sue over software in the best of cases, right? And you're working online. This team was not in the same country as us. Everything was online. So again, it's not that easy to find a really good team that you can trust and work with. And we didn't walk away with nothing. We got all the designs and everything. But yeah,
I still feel like you should name and shame those people. That's not good ethical business, though, is it?
No, it's bad ethics. And that's the problem, when you're in this space, sometimes you are faced with these things, and a lot of people don't get back up because it is so horrible, but it makes you stronger. You just have to power through. And if you're resilient enough, you learn. And that's why we knew for us, the number one thing that we needed more than anything else was a CTO who believed in our vision, who wanted to join our team and wanted to be a part of what we're doing, and is not going to turn around and, rob the
Steal your
idea and run off
idea.
in the other direction. Yeah.
Oh, it's a tough
Which we
lesson
have
to
now.
learn.
So yeah, but that's being a founder. You have to be tough. Like, you have to. There's no room for the kind of being soft and worrying about stuff too much. Like, you have to be confident, you have to be focused, and you have to be resilient, and you have to know when to stop and when to pivot and when to pick yourself up and when to keep going.
Sure. So obviously, with your marketing background, building a company, how did you come up with the company name?
So the company name, it actually stands for Generative AI Optimization. So that's exactly what we do, which is a method where we basically combine a lot of different optimization strategies together. And we've run all these different experiments to know exactly how to use those tools that already exist, and created our own to get AI to talk about your brand, to build that trust.
Amazing. And, obviously there's a bit of a conflict in discussions in your industry at the moment as to what people should call the equivalent of SEO for AI tools. I've heard lots of different acronyms used, GEO and various other things. Where do you kind of sit with that?
Yeah, so I mean, from my perspective, I see GAIO as the overarching strategy, right? Because if you are an SEO person, you already know about things like search engine optimization is one element. I like to think of it like, if you were going to study it at uni, what would be your modules be, right? That's kind of a good way to think about it. So if you were looking at it that way, you've got an SEO at the first, that's what you're going to learn first. Then you've got, answer engine optimization, AEO. And that's really important because that's not new. That's not just because AI's out now. That was there when Siri came out, and all these different kind of Alexa. There's been strategies since Siri came out to actually get Siri to talk about your brand. So we said, okay, looking at that, you've got AEO. That's important too. And then you've got generative engine optimization, of course. That's massive, and that's really, really important. And we see that more as the technical on-site changes, right? So there's technical things you can do on your website to increase your visibility. It's also strategy, as I said, using your strategy there with generative engines is also important. What do machines want? What makes it easier for them to understand your content, and then also cite your content, and what makes them trust you? That credibility optimization is the next layer, the trust. How do you make yourself more credible? Because it's not about gaming the system. There are a lot of companies out there and, kind of content farming like this. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. It doesn't actually work a lot of the time. Might give you a short spike, but chances are you're going to crash. It's about quality. It's about having the right person, the right expert writing at that time, and then making sure that those credibility signals are available. And then, of course, the last one is the geographic optimization. So where is your customer? What are they doing? I mean, traditionally, that would be something like showing up in Google Maps, for example, right? Like, you want to be the first one recommended. Where's the best coffee shop near me? These kind of queries still relevant today, and people are still asking AI, or even just Google, they're typing it in and they're getting the AI overview. So for me, I see where people are coming from, and I really don't like this argument of like, SEO's dead. No, it's this. No, SEO is not dead. SEO is still there. But I just wrote an article today actually about this, where even if you have fantastic SEO and you're a massive brand, you can still be invisible in AI search, because SEO gets you part of the way, but it's not going to get you all the way there. And if it does get you there, it might give you a spike, but that's not what we want. We don't just want to spike once. We want to become trusted and stable within the answer. So to do that, you need to use all of those traditional kind of everything that you can, your toolbox, if you like, your all 5 areas of optimization, and guide it with generative AI optimization strategy. That's kind of how we approach it.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's quite a complicated topic, and I think that there's a lot of folks out there that that listen to the podcast that perhaps they're from a marketing background, they really get this, and perhaps they're not, and they're more from the technical side of the business, but they understand the technical element of this. I think as the businesses move forward and the industry moves forward, just being smarter about how we do things is really important. With your first startup, you were very clear about who your target audience were. It was very easy for you to know who you were going after. How has that been in terms of segmentation and positioning to your audience today? Who are you typically engaging with?
Yeah, so for us, instead of having like a specific sector, what we found was when we're going for AI search results, we found that we're a really good match for high trust industries. So rather than just having one specific, we found that what's working for finance, health tech, legal, these areas, they all involve layers of compliance, and also they're traditionally harder to win in AI search for these queries because AI has a risk analysis where if it's deeming your content too risky, it's going to either rotate it or it's not going to show it. So for us, it was really important to be able to serve these clients. And what we found was what was working for health tech was also working for trading platforms. And so for us, we really focused on the high trust industries. It's the harder thing to do for sure. But get that right and it works and translates across to others. And the nature of AI is that when you build something properly, it can be really adaptable. Like that's the most beautiful part of AI is it's able to kind of adapt to whoever's in front of it. So it's more about your brand rather than the industry as such. But yes, we are focusing mostly on high trust industries in health tech or in finance.
Okay. And how have you been going after them? What's been your approach? You built the tech, you kind of got your co-founder on board. What's been your approach to kind of really go after those organizations?
Yeah, well, generative AI optimization. We've had quite a few
Using your
clients come
own.
in via that. Yeah, for sure. That and LinkedIn. I just love LinkedIn. I think it's such a great platform. So we do a lot of LinkedIn, which is creating good content, talking to the right people, being at different kinds of events, and recommendations. We get a lot of recommendations as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you started this sort of founder journey 5 years ago. Did you always know you wanted to be a founder? How did you even get into that in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, for me, to be honest, I think for me, I love a good challenge and I really do want to be my own boss. I've always wanted to, manage a team. I work really well with others. I like to be in charge. Of course, it's a bit stressful, of course, when you're a founder and you're a CEO, you have a lot to do. But I love it. I really love it. And it's what gets me out of bed every day and what keeps me working through weekends a lot of the time. And, it's that vision that you're building something that is like a legacy company, something that you can be proud of 10 years from now. It's, don't underestimate the power of time. I think that's really for me. And so when I'm thinking like that, I'm like, where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 20 years? And the answer to that is not working for someone else. It's working for myself. So it's that. And also it's creative. It's really, really creative being a founder.
So you mentioned working weekends, but a little bird told me that you are also a mum of a toddler, which I am too. And I don't know how anyone gets any time to themselves. How are you balancing, being a parent and a founder at the same time?
Yeah, it's hard. To be honest, it is hard. For me, I think what's really nice is the fact that I can work from home. So everybody's going to take breaks, right? Like nobody works nonstop. Even if you're working on weekends, the sun's shining, you get outside, you go for a walk all together. You're there for those key activities, but in between, yes, you're working hard behind, at home. Often I have to take myself away sometimes, of course, when they're running around, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You have to rely on family. We're lucky enough to have really lovely family around us who do support us. They help out, and you just do as best you can, right?
Absolutely. And you mentioned the word legacy, building a company like this. I'm guessing, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but having your daughter around, creating a legacy that she'll be proud of as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She sits in my office chair and she goes, I'm the CEO. And she's only 3. I'm like, all right, darling. Yeah, you can be a CEO. Yes, of course you can, and yeah, for
Why
sure.
not?
Yeah, and also it's breaking through that, that glass ceiling a little bit, because being a female founder, like, let's not, like, you look at the data, let's not pretend, like, if you look at the data, it's so much harder to actually raise funding. It's harder in business in general to be a woman than it is a man. I know I might get like, hating on me for that maybe, but it's true. Like, if you look at the data, if you go into a pitch meeting, and I've had this personal experience, you're next to someone else who pitches, who's a male, that even if the ideas are the same, it's proven that it's more likely that the man will get questions about how it could go right, whereas the woman is more about how it could go wrong. And I've personally massively experienced that. For me, got a really thick skin, don't take it personally, learn from what they're saying. Of course, everybody's feedback, no matter how nice or not nice, is important, and you listen to it, but it's also setting an example for her, because as a woman, we do face challenges, and it's important to set a good example for your daughter, and to also pave the way a little bit and lead by example and show her, yeah, you know what, it's really hard, but I can do hard things. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we have a mixed group of individuals that listen to this podcast, and some are in the early stages of their founder journey. Some haven't taken that leap of faith as yet, and some are much further along in their journey, and are perhaps done. They're on their second or third or fourth startup, not dissimilar to yourself. What lessons did you take from your first startup and bring to this one?
For me, I think a huge part of it was the education of it, in all aspects, doing education technology, but also learning, the power of learning. I think that if you're going to be a founder, you have to know how to learn. You have to like learning, and you have to be ready to put in the work, and be able to say humbly, I don't know what I'm talking about this subject, and go out there and find someone who does know that subject better than you, if not an expert, and go and ask questions, right? Just go out there, reach out, talk, get advice, just understand, and lean on your community. And I think that's a huge part of how I've got to where I am today, is the support of others. So I think, making sure that you accept you're not going to know everything. You don't need to know everything, but believe in the power of a really good team.
Amazing. If you were to have your time again, what advice would you give to yourself?
To myself would be probably focus more on getting new clients rather than focusing on chasing down VCs and investors. I think you can sometimes spend a lot of time looking in the wrong direction. Sometimes it's better to actually just get those clients. It's better to have less clients in the beginning than more. I think that's another one. The technical debt involved with having a lot of clients, it seems great, but in the beginning, in your early stages, it's so much better to have less, but really get to know them and really understand their needs and help them as much as possible and make it great for them. Because once they're happy, you're way more likely to scale, and at a less cost. Because that's something I was also taught by some of my advisors, was if you get too many clients too quickly, you're going to get a technical debt, and that technical debt, right now, it might not seem like a lot, but if you multiply by like 1,000, then every time that client needs a reply, or that something goes wrong and you have to reach out to everybody, way better to have, less clients that really love you and really help them and make them happy, then scale before scaling too quickly.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard a founder say, not to have too many clients in the beginning. And I think it totally makes sense, especially now that you've explained it in that way. Because everyone kind of has this rat race of, we've built the company, right, we have to make as much money as possible. And, nobody's going to invest in us unless we've got, hundreds of clients and all the rest of it. But there is a pace and there is a balance to get it right in the beginning. Why do you think so few companies make it beyond the first few years?
Yeah, and I think it's also access to funding. I think that that's also an issue. It's really hard to get pre-seed funding. It's actually easier, I think, to get clients than it is pre-seed funding. And even when you go for pre-seed funds, sometimes they are like, well, we need more revenue or we need this. And you're like, okay. But at that stage, if you're pre-seed, there's also the other argument where it says, well, then you're investing in an idea, right? So it's also getting that belief, getting far enough, finding that CTO, making sure that you've got a good enough product, then making sure you have the grit and determination and focus to just work really, really hard. It's not a job that you can just sign off because you're tired and you want to have a weekend. It's like sometimes you do have to do these epic sprints. It can mean that, like the other month, I worked like 30 days, basically nonstop. But by the end of it, we'd made so much progress. It was like amazing, and then you kind of, okay, I'll have a day off here, a day off there. But you have to work hard. There's no two ways around it. So I think that's a huge reason why some people fail, because they underestimate how hard it's going to be. But yeah, sometimes if you knew how hard it was, would you even try? So it's one of those balances where doesn't mean you should give up, but it means, you have to have that grit and determination.
Amazing. So what do you think the next 12 months lay in store for you and your business?
So for us, over the next 12 months, we're finally going to have the full platform online, which I'm super excited about. So we're going to scale it. We've already been seeing results. So we just had one client in health tech, actually. They increased their visibility by 71%. So their content was being used 71% of the time, and 43% of the time they were actually directly referenced and recommended. So we've got those early numbers before we have this published layer online. Now we're going to be able to take care of a lot of the technical elements and to be able to scale it. So with that published layer online, I really see a lot more results coming, a lot more case studies, and we'll be ready to take on some new clients and hopefully get some of the big ones we've got in the pipeline as well who are interested, be able to bring those on board. Maybe fundraising, we're still looking, but we've kind of toned it down a little bit. As I said, we've been getting clients instead. So either way, happy with both. But in the next year, if we're going to talk a year from now, I'd love to have loads of customers. I'm ready for them, and have a bigger team. We are looking for some more support. So if anyone's looking for co-founding and they're technical, we're looking for you right now. Hopefully we can have a bigger team as well.
Brilliant. Well, I'd love to have you back in 12 months' time and see how the year has gone for you. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you too. It was lovely, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.